is based on the current published 50136 standard, but, this is the big but, it does incorporate enhanced performance criteria, which I think addresses some of the issues that the industry has. For example, we now have 10-minute reporting time as an option. Traditionally, it was either, to stick with the standards at least, it was either 5 hours or the next available option would be 3 minutes. There was nothing in between, so we've added an extra value. We have stepped up reporting, which enables the secondary path, or the designated secondary path, to perhaps poll, if we're talking about polling, at a lesser rate. That adds cost saving. But in the event of a primary path going down, then the secondary path can step up, so that the end user at least knows that his integrity of the system has been maintained, even with a potential fault on the system. We're also insisting that the same performance parameters are identical between primary and secondary, except for the reporting time, which are allowed to poll at a slightly lesser rate. The reason for doing this is that if the primary path is deliberately taken out, as a user, you don't want to know that your system is now running on a lesser performance value. And I think traditionally, that's the way that the EN standards have been interpreted, that you can have your secondary parts at a significantly lower level of performance than the primary. With the new LPS, we've changed that. There's also a requirement to detect catastrophic failure. And by that I mean when both paths go down simultaneously, perhaps through a power supply fault. I think it's fair to say in the past, from some of the systems we've actually looked at, that that's not always the case. Some of them couldn't quite cope with that. We also acknowledge the use of duplicate paths as well, where you may have two designated primary paths in operation at the same time. There are requirements now in the standard for that. We're also, and this is something that I have done in 2.2 as well, and that's test the systems in conjunction with the live network. Now, oddly enough, when you read the European standards, that's not something that it gives you as an option to do. So you could, as a test lab, connect it all up in a laboratory, connect it with straight bits of wire and measure the performance parameters, which with a straight piece of wire is bound to work really well. It's not until you get it into the real world situation that you actually find the real world scenarios which are happening. So I think that's something that I do insist upon. Now, if you want to know more about these parameters and the changes, I am doing a talk this afternoon at the Toot Suite, where I'm going into that in a bit more detail. I also believe that it's the only scheme that addresses some of the issues which are raised in, as it is at the moment, a draft risk authority report on alarm signalling. It's something that the insurers looked at as a research project and identified some weaker areas. I was privileged to see an advanced copy of that and have incorporated many of the issues that were raised as solutions into the LPS standard. Now, the LPS itself, the 1277, provides the basis for an approval scheme which ensures continued compliance with these requirements. The mark that you see there is the LPCB mark, and the manufacturer, having met all the requirements, can place the mark on his product, which would help the end user to identify equipment that has been approved.